and thus birthed the infamous 5-suite system in Philippine dance. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Kamaya Julian, and I'm with the Samahan Filipino American Performing Arts and Education Center. Today we're going to be talking about this woman, but more specifically, how her personality and character traits forever embodied Philippine dance and fashion. The Philippines is a large group of islands in maritime Southeast Asia, sandwiched between Taiwan and Malaysia. So you think their culture and arts would be similar to those countries? Well, it's complicated. We got some things to talk about. The Philippines is the most Hispanicized country in Southeast Asia. It all started with Ferdinand Magellan, the famous Spanish explorer of Portuguese descent. Yes, you heard that right. Magellan was Portuguese and not from Spain. Anyway, he did lead a Spanish expedition to circumnavigate the world, which he was technically successful in doing until he got a taste of his own medicine for trying to kill off many of the indigenous people. We then go into the colonial era of the Philippines. Side note, colonialism is a multi-layered issue of injustice for many people, so we're mainly going to be focusing on the fun stuff, like art, specifically performing arts. You see, when Spain settled in the Philippines, they brought over many of their own cultural arts. This includes their religion, their language, their outfits, their music, and the way they dance, all of which was very European. After 3 centuries of colonial influence, Western culture became the dominant culture in the Philippines, with over 90% of the population identifying with Roman Catholic faith. And with religion comes values and social rules. This meant that the people, especially women, had to dress a certain way and act a certain way. Enter our main character. Maria Clara, whose full name is Maria Clara de los Santos, is the mestizo heroine in Noli Me Tangere, a novel written in 1887 by Jose Rizal, a national hero of the Philippines. Her name and character have since become a byword in Philippine culture for the traditional feminine ideal. This character has been associated as the ideal Filipina, being described as everybody's idol, gentle, kind, and beautiful, but also indirectly associated with being motherly, submissive, and religious. Jose Rizal wrote and modeled the character over his childhood sweetheart, Leonor Rivera, and he further described Maria Clara as having European features such as big eyes, white skin, pointier nose, and is mixed race. She is promoted by Rizal as the ideal image of a Filipino woman who deserves to be placed on the pedestal of male honor. Hey, these are his words, not mine. Although this may sound a bit misogynistic, this caricature is not simply old-fashioned. Nowadays, the Maria Clara look is still heavily valued among women's beauty standards. Recent Miss Universe winners, Pia Wurtzbach and Katrina Gray, both heavily resemble these physical traits. Both are mixed race with big eyes, pointy nose, and fair skin. So clearly over the last 150 years, the Maria Clara look is highly valued, even nowadays. Speaking of looks, let's talk fashion. With a strong influence of Spanish assimilation, many of the population began to resemble Western attire. This mainly occurred in large metropolitan areas like Cebu, Manila, and its provincial and rural outskirts. The people dressed more conservative for the country's viceroys, which eventually led to the national outfit of the Philippines, being the barong Tagalog for men and the barot saya for women. It was a very gender-binary period of time. When the Spaniards came and settled in the country, the fashion changed drastically as the Spanish culture influenced the succeeding centuries. The Spanish settlers dissolved the kingdoms and united the completely different islands into a single country, resulting in a mixture of cultures from various ethnic groups with Eurocentric standards. Starting in the late 1500s, women typically wore a Hispanicized version of the barot saya, composed of a bodice called a camisa, a floor-length skirt, and in much more formal settings, a shawl wrapped around the shoulders and chest. This outfit paved the way for the ever-famous traje de mestiza. Now, this is the look for Filipinas across the country. This look was so popular that even today it's more commonly known as the Maria Clara gown. Let's put that into context. People have been wearing iterations of the traje de mestiza for centuries, but a fictional character written in the late 19th century all of a sudden came up and basically owned the dress, and everybody loved it. She was out here serving looks. Maria Clara was a trendsetter of the millennia. Everyone wanted to be just like her. During this time period, many men wore their barong Tagalog, commonly shortened as barong. This masculine attire is an embroidered long-sleeve formal shirt, and it combines elements from both pre-colonial and Spanish clothing styles. It is traditionally made with sheer textiles woven from piña or abaca, although in modern times, cheaper materials like silk, organza, and polyester are also used. Later in the 1800s, blazers and tailcoat jackets were also seen worn on top of barongs. They really wanted to make sure they looked good for the ladies. But it wasn't enough to look the part, oh no. Anyone can do their best to look like Maria Clara, but you gotta make sure you can move like her too. It's up for debate if Maria Clara herself was an actual dancer, but regardless, a lot of her characteristics, like gentleness, grace, and hiya, were often translated into Philippine dance during these centuries. These dance styles included the jota, pasodoble, pandango, and concha danza. Colloquially, many people even refer to these as the Maria Clara dances. You can thank a particular national dance company for that, but we'll get into that later. But as far as dancing goes, it's better to take a look at where the soul of dance comes from, the music. At the turn of the 16th century, Spanish friars taught liturgical music to the Philippine congregation to Catholicism. So what does that mean? Basically, 4-part harmony and concepts of tonality were instilled by the churches and schools. Religious choirs and caroling groups performing serenades accompanied by dance dramas spread from village to village. Secular genres of European dance were Filipinized in the process. The jota, habanera, pasodoble, reggaeton, polka, valse, and fandango, just to name a few. In every region, the Filipinos living in the barrios added their own provincial flair, with distinct movements such as the kumintang, kuredang, and sway balance. The high-class ilustrados also practiced these dance styles with much more regality. Major and minor tonalities are characteristic of the music for dance accompaniment, all of which were from an earlier prototype known as kundiman. This compositional style was used by many composers during the latter half of Spanish colonization. Notable composers such as Felipe de Leon, Nitoy Gonzalez, Alfredo Buenaventura, Constantino de Guzman, and Ladislao Bonas were known for composing Philippine folk songs with kundiman attributes. Towards the end of the Spanish rule, music was needed to accompany folk dances, segueing into the 50 years in Hollywood. The Rondalia ensemble gained popularity among many young students. Tracing its origins from Aragon, Spain, instrument makers studied the construction of your standard 6-string guitar and mandolin. They doubled the strings in order to expand the range of the instrument. Tuned in fourths, the Rondalia ensemble consists of the bandoria, the octavina, the laúd, the guitar, and the upright bass. Rondalia ensembles became the most recognizable ensembles, thanks to Americans institutionalizing it throughout the entire Philippines. On that note, folk dance companies were formed to strengthen the physical education program and nationalistic agenda, all influenced by both Spain and the United States. Combined together, you now have dance troupes accompanied by the Rondalia, putting Philippine culture on the map. This is all great and stuff, but what does Maria Clara have to do with any of this? We're getting there, don't you worry. Philippine dance has played a tremendous role in Philippine culture. From one of the oldest dated dances like tinikling and other folkloric dances such as subli, and even to more modern day dances like ballet, it is no doubt that dance in the Philippines has integrated itself in society over the course of many years. After World War II, the Philippines got out of Spanish and American ruling and finally got their independence as a nation. Whoop whoop! But shortly after, the Philippines was in a bit of a pickle. President Ramon Magsaysay requested the Philippines to be represented by a professional dance company at Expo 58, the Brussels World Fair. You see, this is the first time many people around the world ever heard of the Philippines. President Magsaysay wanted the Philippines to look good in front of all the other countries. And that's how Bayanihan, the national folk dance company of the Philippines, was born. More or less. The rising popularity of Broadway musicals was one of the main influences of Bayanihan's work. Bayanihan was known for dramatizing their folk dances and making them captivating for a Western audience. The directors modeled their entire repertoire off of the typical 5-act play that many Shakespearean and theater productions would do at the time, and thus birthed the infamous 5 suite system in Philippine dance. Among the 5 suites that Bayanihan had in their repertoire, one of them was entirely based off of Maria Clara herself. They were portraying all these Spanish-influenced dances as high-class, romantic, and multiplied the drama to the nth degree in their Maria Clara suite. And this is where we stand. While the Philippine Paso Doble, Jota, and Pandango are often credited with Spanish origins, the way these folk dances are practiced today are often theater renditions with the drama of Bayanihan and embodying the romantic and beautiful character of Maria Clara herself. And she didn't even exist! She's literally a figment of someone's imagination, and she influenced this much. So it is a little reaching to say that Maria Clara is Philippine dance. It's more accurate to say that elements of the Maria Clara archetype are found in many colonial folk dances in the Philippines, to varying degrees. While technically incorrect, a lot of people in the dance world will still refer to many of the Spanish dances as Maria Clara dances, due to the outfits and romantic nuance. This girl, while being a completely fictional concept, has quite a lot of influence in the real world. Her name nowadays is widely used to label the fashion, the music, and the dances of the Spanish era, even though she wasn't created until many generations after those things were established. But that's a quick overview on the colonial music and dance of the Philippines. There's a lot more to unpack with specific pieces and its own specific history. Think of everything in the video as the tip of the iceberg. If you would like to learn more, you can visit us at samahanarts.org and sign up for classes and workshops. We're always looking to educate on living traditions through cultural and performing arts. We're open to all ages, ethnicities, gender identities, all of the above. If you would like to learn more about culture from the Philippine Islands, feel free to hit us up. Mabuhay and maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.